Hi there, these comments are for MS. This is Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com. I'm listening to a speaking practice test you sent me on Thanksgiving. It is now Friday, what we call Black Friday here in the United States because of all the sales. Okay, I'm going to listen to the practice test. So the question here is parents are the best teachers. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? So let's listen to your practice test, and then after I'll give you some comments on it.
I agree that parents are the best teachers for their kids because their genetic makeup is the closest to them. First of all, genetics play a vital role in humans, and when it comes to the kinship between parents and their children, naturally the kids hereditary share common genes with them. For example, I have an old friend who was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome, so she couldn't stay still in class. Later on, the years passed by, she got married and she had a child, and when the child entered school, his teachers started to complain about being hyperactive and not focusing in the classroom setting. As a result, she was the best one to help him, not the teacher nor any therapist because she knows the situation. That's why I agree that parents are the best tutors for the children.
Okay, I like how you're using the word tutor as a synonym for teachers. Now, I don't exactly get the connection between the genetics. So, parents share the same genes as their children. We know that, right? But how does that make them better teachers? But what if you say they have the same environmental kind of situation because the kids are spending all their time outside of class with their parents, and that gives the parents kind of an advantage to help their children because they're connected through their environment. So that might be a better way to argue that as opposed to saying the genetic factors. So I'm not sure about the causal relationship and whether you proved that or not based on the example you provided and then the introduction that you used to frame the response. That would be my only maybe worry about this one that might affect your topic development a little bit. So it says here, we have response is sustained and sufficient to the task. This is 4. It is generally well developed and coherent. Relationships between ideas are clear, or there is a clear progression of ideas. That's where I'm having a little bit of trouble, is the connection between the genetic kind of relationship that the parents and the children share, and then why that makes parents better teachers. That's a connection that I'm kind of looking at. Okay, so let me give you some advice on how to connect this a little bit better. So this is important because the relationship of your ideas, the examples you provide versus the introduction you're using to frame the response, they need to be connected. So your claim here is parents are better teachers because they share the same genes as their children. So the problem here is sharing genes does not automatically produce better teaching. Genes explain traits, not teaching skill, instruction, or knowledge. So if you wanted to revise this and make it a stronger causal argument, you might, number one, identify the real cause. The connection really isn't genes, maybe it's familiarity. Parents understand their children's personalities, needs, and habits because they have known them since birth. It's more of an environmental kind of thing. They're spending time together to clearly show the effect. Because they understand their children better, parents can adjust how they teach, making learning more effective. So you have the logical chain, cause, mechanism, and effect. So parents can sometimes be more effective teachers because they deeply understand their children's learning styles and emotional needs. Since parents observe their children's behavior daily, they recognize patterns such as whether their child learns better through visuals, repetition, or hands-on practice. This close familiarity allows parents to adjust explanations, pacings, and examples in ways that professional teachers who work with many students at once may not always be able to do. As a result, the instruction children receive at home can feel more personalized, which helps some students grasp new ideas more easily. So that's maybe a way that you would make that causal kind of relationship there. Now, if you want a biology angle on it, it's not very easy to do, but here's maybe one way to do it. I went in and used chat to kind of help figure this out. It says, here's a small, reasonable version that avoids the genes good teaching problem. So you say parents may share genetic traits such as temperament, attention patterns, or cognitive tendencies with their children. Because they often recognize these traits in themselves, they can anticipate how their children learn and adjust their instruction accordingly. So that would be a way to make that cause-effect relationship, but unfortunately, that's not really what you did there. Okay, so let's listen to it now. So that's the main thing I wanted to point out. Now let's listen to other
I
aspects
agree
of
that parents
the
are the best
response.
teachers for their kids because their genetic makeup is the closest to them. First of all, genetics play a vital role in humans, and when it comes to the kinship between parents and their children, naturally the kids hereditary share common genes with them. For example, I have an old friend who was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome, so she couldn't stay still in class. Later on, the years passed by, she got married and she had a child, and when the child entered school, his teachers started to complain about being hyperactive and not focusing in the classroom setting. As a result, she was the best one to help him, not the teacher nor any therapist because she knows the situation. That's why
Now, does the mother or the father who is helping a child who has the ADHD, maybe the parent also had that same trait, had that same problem of ADHD, therefore was better able to help the student to cope and thereby learn better because they shared that same genetic trait, maybe. So you needed to make that causal kind of a relationship a little bit
I
more
agree that
clear.
parents are the best tutors for the children.
Yeah, so I think overall it's a good strong response. I mean, I think you did really well with your delivery. I'm going to say 3.5 to 4 on that. I think it's very strong. You're speaking clearly, you're speaking quickly. You don't have a lot of pauses or hesitations in your voice, so I think that's strong. You had good control of your language use. You're starting to incorporate more, not just basic, but also advanced grammar and vocabulary into your speaking responses. So I think you're making progress in that area. I think topic development, so maybe delivery language is 3.5 to 4, maybe topic development 3.0 to 3.5. So that might hold you back just a little bit on this one. So relationship between ideas may not be immediately clear. That might be one thing you might want to think about with this one. So I'm going to give you a score here of maybe 24 to 26 points out of 30 on this practice test. All right, let's listen to your second practice test. So you submitted one also on Friday, which is today. So I'm just giving you both feedback on both practice tests in this video right now. So the question here, it's kind of like a preference. Is it better to study one subject at a time, or is it better to study multiple subjects? That's kind of the answer that you're dealing with right now, right? So let's listen to your
If I had
practice
to choose
test.
between studying multiple subjects concurrently versus one subject at a time, I would definitely prefer to study one subject only because this improves my concentration and consequently my overall result. First of all, focusing on one subject only leads to better results. For instance, I remember last semester I had a big biology exam coming up and I needed to focus on it. I decided to study only biology at the time. I started to make flashcards on Quizlets. I started to review the materials every single day. And you know what? I ended up getting A+. For this reason, I believe that focusing on only one subject is better.
Okay, so I like that concrete example you provided to help support that claim you put forth in the beginning. Now, again, you want to make sure that there's a clear connection between what you said in the beginning versus the claim that you have. The claim you put forth in the beginning versus the examples you provide after that. Okay, let's look at the beginning
If I
here.
had to choose between studying multiple subjects concurrently versus one subject at a time, I would definitely prefer to study one subject only because this improves my concentration and consequently my overall result.
Now let's take a look at your topic statement. I put it into a chat GPT. I created a 150 word response, and I'm showing you how you can make it a little bit better connected. So the very first sentence incorporates your 2 points. Studying one subject at a time improves my concentration and leads to better academic results because it allows me to fully focus on a single task. So then we have the example here. When I try to switch between subjects, I lose time reviewing what I just learned and my tend to become scattered. However, when I commit my study session to only one topic, I can stay mentally organized and remember key ideas more effectively. And that's illustrating the concentration, right? For example, last semester I separated my study schedule into single subject blocks, and I found that I understand my biology readings more deeply because I was not thinking about math or history at the same time. This focused approach also reduced stress since I did not feel pressure to multitask. Now, notice how it says better academic results, and you actually showed that at the end. As a result, my test scores improved and I completed assignments more efficiently. For these reasons, concentrating on one subject at a time strengthens both attention and overall performance. So there's a clear connection here to the beginning and then the examples in between. You could probably tighten that structure just a little bit better. That would be my comment there. Okay, so now keep that in mind, what we just talked about. Let's listen
If
to
I
yours
had to
one more
choose
time.
between studying multiple subjects concurrently versus one subject at a time, I would definitely prefer to study one subject only because this improves my concentration and consequently my overall result.
Yeah, I like the use of consequently. That shows that cause effect relationship. So that's good. I like also you're using the simple past tense verbs. If I had to choose, I would. And you're talking about a present impossible situation. So you're demonstrating both syntactic variety and you're also demonstrating good control over your verb tenses as you communicate that implied present tense reality.
First of all, focusing on one subject only leads to better results. For instance, I remember last semester I had a big biology exam coming up and I needed to focus on it. I decided to study
Now, this is even better than the chat generated example because you're talking about biology. You're bringing up a specific example.
only biology at the time. I started to make flashcards on Quizlets.
No, the only thing I would say is you want to prove that first point, the
If I had to
concentration.
choose between studying multiple subjects concurrently versus one subject at a time, I would definitely prefer to study one subject only because
Okay,
this improves my concentration and consequently my overall result.
good.
First of all, focusing on one subject only leads to better results.
But you said 2 points there, right? You said improves concentration and then leads to better overall results. I would, if you want to have concentration as your first key point, then I would develop that idea first and then move to the second idea. That's my suggestion there.
For instance, I remember last semester I had a big biology exam coming up and I needed to focus on it.
Now you have some very clear pronunciation. This is good pacing. Anybody at YouTube who's watching this is what you want to do. You do not want a lot of unnecessary pauses and hesitations. Now, also, you're varying your intonation. I don't sound like you're a machine. There's a person behind this audio file, right? I feel it's humanized through your natural intonation patterns.
I decided to study only biology at the time. I started to make flashcards on Quizlets. I started to review the materials every single day.
Okay.
And you know what? I ended up getting A+. plus.
Now, I like the idea, and you know what? So, you know what is very idiomatic. It's kind of like a very informal rhetorical question, but it's engaging. It helps make the response work. It connects you to your audience. I think that's very effective how you did that.
For this reason, I believe that focusing on only one subject is better.
So my only suggestion is you want to make the first idea, improves my concentration. You want to be able to connect at least part of your response back to that idea. And then you did a great job connecting the example, the biology exam, connecting that back to how it leads to getting a good grade, an A plus. So I think that was effective. So I think overall, my main comment here is I think that this is probably the best one I've heard so far. The only thing I would, if I gave it a fault, is the improves the overall concentration. You could have probably made that connection a little bit more clear. But I think this is pretty close to 3.5 to 4 in all categories: delivery, language use, topic development. I believe that this could get a 26 point or higher according to the rubrics that I'm looking at right now. Now, any of you at YouTube, what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree with my score here? Post your comments below the video. Let me know your thoughts. And anyway, MS, you're definitely moving in the right direction here. So I'm thinking that this is probably 26 points or higher based on your performance. Just be careful. If you outline 2 points in the topic statement in the beginning of the response, then the expectation is you're going to develop both of those points with clear, relevant details. That would be my comments on that.